Welcome to the Art of Life podcast. As I talked about last week, we are going to get into a controversial subject. While you guys are listening, keep an open mind. This is talking about my journey and how I formed my beliefs personally. You might hear some roosters in the background. Like I said, I'm in Mexico. But I really want to dive into my journey with my relationship with both religion and faith. And I know it can be a very touchy subject. And I'm always open for respectful debate. And I'm happy for you guys to engage in the comments or shoot me a DM about it. But I renounced my attachment to my religion when I was, 16-ish approximately. I grew up Catholic. I went to a French Catholic elementary and high school as well. And in that, we had days where we had to go to church. We had days where we had to participate. And I did participate in a lot of the church activities just because I like the community. And one thing that's always bothered me about, religion was the dogma. It was this is the way it is and you're not allowed to ask about it and it has to be this way. I'm very, very driven, I'm sure you've noticed if you listen to the podcast, by curiosity. I want to know why. And so the idea that you're not allowed to question or look to other religions or look to other gods and that it's blasphemous, that was something that always really bothered me. And like I said, I want to know why the rules exist. And I fully, it was a gradual process as we studied the Bible in school and there was things that, I was like, well, not everyone has access to this information. How is that sinful? And I had these things that didn't make sense to me. But I really finally cut all ties with calling myself Catholic or Christian or any denomination of religion when I got ill. And it was from a place of anger. I came to the world like, how is it fair that I'm so young, I've been so good, I never did anything wrong, and I'm being condemned to this horrible illness? And if there is a God, there's no God that would do that to me. And so I renounced my religion. And I talked about this in a prior episode that I used to say I renounced my faith. And I had a really religious friend who was like, you're full of faith, Matt. Like, you just don't like religion. And we talked about it a lot. But the reality is, religion has played an immense role in my life. Not necessarily from following it, but more of curiosity. I think it's been really an interesting thing to dive into. Most people, I would say, follow some sort of religion. And I think, as you read these sacred scripts like the Bible or the Quran or the Torah or the Haggadah, whatever they are, the books, they have deep knowledge and you start to understand how a lot of the world operates. It's from the lessons in these books. But growing up in the West, I grew up in Canada, a lot of people, a lot of my friends, when we start talking about religion, haven't read the book of the religion they follow. And, to each their own. Religion to me is like your relationship with your God. Like, that's totally up to you. But I've always said, when you're a kid, your parents tell you things and you learn from that. But that's like some level of programming, right? They teach you this is what's real, this is what's okay, this is what's not okay, and they do that to keep you safe and guide you through life so you can make it. When you become an adult, I think it's really important to start questioning the things you've been told. And I vividly remember I had this debate, we were on a wedding in Mexico, but I was talking about so many people have so many strong opinions, yet we know nothing about them. And I think approaching things with a much more open mind is the way to understand the world so much better, And I think I'm not necessarily believe the earth is flat, and I've made this reference before, but when someone tells me the earth is flat, I don't immediately think they're crazy. They've probably done research, they have their reasons to believe that. I don't think we should discredit anything. I think we should be curious about why they believe that, because I approach life knowing that I'm 100% certain that I'm wrong about something, right? Something that I'm certain about, I'm wrong. And I want to know the truth. I'm very much guided by the curiosity and seeking wisdom and seeking knowledge and seeking truth. And so stepping away from religion was a powerful thing for me. I stepped out of religion for reasons of anger. And now I look back, the things that I was angry about was getting ill, seeing my family go through that, seeing the world for what it was, is now some of the things I'm most grateful for. I talk about all the time. What I went through is the best thing that ever happened to me. The lessons it taught me, the way that it forged me, the way I get to show up in the world because of it is the best thing that ever happened to me. But in the process of renouncing my religion and facing mortality, faith was a really big part of it. Because faith is the belief that something something's for you or something's there without having any evidence of that, right? Astrology is kind of based on faith. Myths are based on faith. Like there's a quote about like you set your alarm every night knowing you're going to wake up the next day. That's faith. That like it's based off that. And there's a lot of great philosophers that dive into it, like Nietzsche being one, Alan Watts being another. But religion is so interesting because it guides so much of the world, and they're powerful lessons and powerful stories. And I have a couple like key examples in my life where it was very vivid. This has got to be like 2013, 2014. I went to Calgary to train Muay Thai. It's when I was like starting to train. I was really curious, and there's a gentleman out there named Paul Sukis who was friends with my martial arts coach, my karate teacher. And so I took a flight, but with me was a man named Usman, who I trained with a lot. And he's an imam, and those who don't know, an imam is like the equivalent of a priest in Islam, or like a Muslim priest. And me and him spent the week together. You know, he went for, Tai Chi and karate. I went for Muay Thai, but he rented a car. We shared hotel rooms. And the entirety of the time, and he's very strict Muslim. And so I asked him questions, and he was really open about my questions. And, we have these long drives where we talk about it. And I remember I had just gotten a new phone. And I only had like a couple albums on it. I didn't have time to upload my music. And he was like, hey, we can't listen to music with swearing. I was like, yeah, man, like you're paying for the car, that's cool. But the only album I had that didn't have any swearing was Taylor Swift. And I think this is so funny because the whole thing feels like a reality TV show. We showed up to the airport, and he's wearing like a long t-shirt, like the Muslim attire with the hat and the long beard. And then I was like, Justin Bieber hair, piercings, dyed hair, like band shirt, combat boots, and we're traveling together. I remember the guy being like, you guys traveling together? I'm like, yeah, we are. And we just looked hilarious. We were both under 25, and so the car he rented was like a yellow Fiat. So we're driving around Alberta, which is like all F2, F350s, big trucks in this yellow Fiat, listening to Taylor Swift. But I learned so much about faith and religion talking to him. He would pray 5 times a day. He would watch, like, I was going to say religiously, but like very strictly, like what he would eat. There could be no alcohol in it. There could be no pork in it. And I saw the ceremony and the value that the religion brought to him, and learning about his religious journey where he's like, yeah, I questioned it. Of course I questioned it. And I was told by the people who were teaching me religion to question it. And he has a beautiful story about it, which was super interesting to me. And I learned a ton, and it was cool to learn about a religion I didn't grow up around and understand that a lot of the world operates based on these codes and these lessons. And, cut to like more than 10 years later. No, less than 10 years later. I ended up dating someone who was Muslim. It's a girl I loved very much, and we had a great relationship, but we would often debate our religious beliefs because it was important to her that if she was going to settle down, it was going to be with a man who was Muslim. And so I started reading the Quran, and we would talk about it. And that's what made me realize, like kind of what I touched on earlier, that a lot of us who are religious because that's what we were brought up around and taught. I don't think that's wrong. I think, there's a lot to trusting your family and trusting the people that teach you. And there's a lot of value in the faith. And if you found faith in religion and it serves you, I think it's really powerful. But personally for me, there was a lot of stories in these books that I found problematic. The best example being that of Adam and Eve, right? Like, what is the story of Adam and Eve? Like, God created Adam in his image, breathed life into him from the dirt and put him in this paradise, the Garden of Eden, with like friendly animals and fruit to eat, and there was no predators, and everything was great, and he was lonely. And so from his rib, he made a woman, he made Eve. And they had such a powerful, immediate intimate because she came from him and he came from the earth, and their connection to this. And the whole reason, like, why were we forsaken out of the, kingdom, quote unquote, the Garden of Eden, the paradise that was Eden? It was the seduction from the serpent that led us to eat the fruit of knowledge. And that's the verbiage, right? Like, I had to double check before the podcast, the fruit of knowledge. And there's a book that I haven't read yet that I really want to read. I actually don't remember the name of it right now. But the premise is that based on, like, Satan was cast down from, or Lucifer, or the devil, whatever you want to call him, because they're different, allegedly. From heaven, he was cast down to earth because he didn't want to bow down to man from my understanding. And I might be a little bit off on that. And it depends on the religion that you follow. But that's the idea that I've been told. And when he landed on earth, the whole book is based that like when Satan landed upon earth, he discovered savages, which was us, right? And he educated him, and that was the original sin, right? The idea that like, I don't think the thirst for knowledge is sinful, but the idea that we suffer as a byproduct of wanting to understand is a powerful one, right? And it's like the famous matrix, red pill, blue pill. Do you live in ignorance, happy in the matrix, or do you want to know the truth? And to be honest, like, I'm very much a truth seeker. I'm very much like, take the red pill, understand the truth. And there's a part of me that like, there's power to being content. There's power to being, why would I question my beliefs that serve me so? And to be honest, like, we all have to make our own decision. We all have to make our own decision about where faith lies in our life, where religion lies in our life. But the thing is, we all believe things that we're wrong about. And we all believe like some pretty crazy things. I talk about all the time omens, the language of the universe. I talk about creator. I talk about prayer and Reiki and all sorts of things that can't necessarily be explained with science, or even if they can be explained with science. Again, it's hearsay. It's something I read on the internet, or a friend who's in science told me about, or I read in an article or on a book. And so when it comes to like what we believe, there has to be some faith to showing up. I have to believe that the floor is going to be in front of me when I step, and that's based on the experience of my lifetime. Right? What I've gone through my life, I've come to conclusions based on my experience, the conversations that I've had, and so on and so forth. But I would challenge anyone that's like really curious to understanding, because when you question your beliefs, one of two things happens. You move away from them, or you go deeper into them. You're either building yourself more faith, or you're realizing there's flaws in your beliefs. And finding out there's flaws in your beliefs is like extremely uncomfortable, right? And so we immediately reject it. And you see it all the time with debates, when people debate something that they're really passionate about, and they look stupid because they just get frustrated and walk away, and it's that cognitive dissonance. But if you approach it with like open-mindedness, I think that's a beautiful way of like never stopping your growth. As a culture, we kind of decide like when you get old, you get stagnant, but like I never want to get stagnant. I want to keep growing. I want to know that I'm wrong. That's like part of the human experience. And I found a lot of spirituality in renouncing my religion, as I talked about earlier, right? I talked about how like November 11th, 2011, at 11:11, I was in a temple in China meditating with monks. And what do I remember from that? I remember being uncomfortable. I remember it being underwhelming from what I played up in my head. I had all these expectations. I remember, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a cool story, but like how powerful is it that I'm doing this at this moment? It's only powerful because I give it meaning. Right? I mean, you could talk about the astrology and the numerology of it all, but at the moment, that's what kind of went through my head, right? And I'm trying to be present. I want this moment to be so powerful. And my most spiritual, profound, quote unquote, maybe not religious, but like those type of experiences have been being super present in life, you know? Or like I talk often about psychedelics. I don't think it's medicine for everyone, but for me, shifting my perspective and being present in my body, or breath work, like those are some of the most spiritual times in my life. And like some of those moments happened on friends' couches, or in a hotel, not lobby, but like conference room, where I'm doing like 3 hours of breath work, being guided and going through something, you know? I've done sweat lodges, like Temascas. Some of them have been really powerful. And some of them have just been miserable. Some of them have just been like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is uncomfortable. Nothing's coming to me. I'm not finding the benefit. And the fact is, like, I think in the pursuit of faith and spirituality, you have to keep trying things. And the thing that I always come back to is that the most spiritual thing you can do is be here 100%. Be immersed in the human experience. I think it's so easy to go and people do this all the time, but like read books and delve in ideology and just think. But I think, but I think it's just being here, being in my body, like fighting. I talk about fighting being a really spiritual experience where like, it's one of the few times in my life where I'm 100% present. This person in front of me is trying to take my head off, right? Maybe not literally because we're sparring or fighting, but like I'm in my body. I feel my emotions. I'm telling myself to calm down. And I think that's probably why I get attracted or called to difficult things like ice baths and saunas and like really hot saunas or really long tattoo appointments, is like there's something there. right? Like, why is pain bad? It's literally just a visceral, like my body just tells me it's bad, but it's just something I feel that I, as a result, dislike, you know? And I think the last thing I want to touch on is like, this is a really interesting subject because I want to make this podcast for a while. I know it's controversial. I know I have a lot of opinions, and I know that I lack a lot of education of people who talk about this. So I'm just sharing my personal experience with it, my spiritual journey, my faith. And I think as I read the Quran, I noticed it a lot because I read that book most recently, that religious book, not all of it, but a lot of it, is that it lacks a lot of context, right? It lacks the context of the current day. And I hear this argument often just like scrolling through Instagram, but like very religious people that have tattoos, you know, two people of the same faith, the same church might think tattoos are either blasphemous or not. And then you talk to like religious scholars or people who have studied it very deeply, that context matters, because like tattoos then weren't the same, and there was blood sacrifice, and there's people that would like mutilate themselves as a result. And the fact is, like, your faith and your religion are what you make it and are what serve you. What I disliked about it are the necessary evils behind it and the shame and guilt that people have, and the fear that like of hell, the fear of hell for not following the rules to a T. And I'm guided by empathy, you know, morals. And like morals for me are dictated by empathy. Like, how would I want someone else to act if I'm in that position? If that makes sense. Like, this is going to impact this person. If I was them, how would I want them to act? And also, I need to also have love for myself. So I think having that open mind and that questionness has been one of the best things for me. And so I'm very happy to say I don't subscribe to any denomination of religion, despite, I think, being quite educated in it, like more so than a lot of people that follow a lot of religion. And I don't know. I think I made this episode to kind of share that, like, I can't point the finger and laugh at anyone that's religious, because some of my beliefs are crazy. I talk about all sorts of stuff. I talk about meant to be. I talk about faith. I talk about faith, like destiny or like purpose, right? Like, when I'm in a bad headspace, I really fall deep into existentialism, and I believe that for a long time. I used to identify as an atheist, which I don't anymore. But I used to identify as an atheist and think that like the universe is infinite, chaos is always happening. If anything and everything is always happening, of course, this reality, this is just where I happen to be. And that was really like not a fun way to live. And so from that, I decided, no, I don't want to believe this anymore. And I found beliefs that serve me. And I remember like having a debate with someone about like, it's not why you believe shit, but like really it kind of is why we believe shit. It should be anyways, because reality, your perception is your reality. You are shaped by your own reality, our confirmation bias, like simply what we believe. Why do I know that ultraviolet light exists? Because I get a sunburn and I learned about it in science class, and I feel the sun, but like that could be total jargon. I don't know, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a dude that has a podcast and likes martial arts. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you got something out of that episode. I hope no matter what your religion or faith is, I think having some level of faith is incredibly powerful. And I urge you to live life that way and also be fully immersed in the human experience. You know, give yourself grace. If you're curious about religion, read the books. I think, although I'm not Catholic, I think from what I know about Jesus, he sounded rad. Like, he's a nomadic dude that taught morality and rules to people about how to live life, and, you know, hung out with his friends and had all these things that he did that were like, he was a pariah, right? Now he's very worshipped, and then had the audacity, maybe audacity is not the right word, but he's like, I'm the son of God, and sharing all these stories. I think there's a lot of beauty to religion. I've just personally chosen to step away from it. But I love talking about it and I love learning about it. So feel free to comment, share. Guys, we're on YouTube now as well, so you can watch this video as well. And I always forget to say it, but please rate the podcast. It helps me a lot. It helps me, you know, eventually get sponsors so I can monetize this. A lot goes into a podcast. And although I do enjoy it, it's cool to like get some monetary gain from the hard work that I do. But that's not why I'm doing it. And of course, any sponsor I work with, rest assured, like, I'm not ever sharing something I wouldn't personally use or give to my family, right? Like, I've had brands approach me to work with me that I've said no because I just didn't like their product or didn't believe in their product, or it wasn't for me. Every brand I've ever worked with on social media or podcast are brands that I truly love and continue to use and stand by. So as always, guys, please rate the show. If you want to share this with a friend, that's like super helpful because it gets someone else into the podcast. and talking about it. And if you guys think I missed out on some stuff or should talk about more, please DM me. That like makes my day. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram at AOL Podcast, at AOL Art of Life, not the internet provider, at AOL Podcast. Please follow. Please share the shit that you like. That's like the biggest help you can do. I'm not asking you for any money, but if you found this valuable, or you know someone you think would find it valuable, or I always post those clips on Instagram and TikTok, share those. If you believe it or you want to spark a debate with someone, that helps immensely. And ending with a quote, okay? Very relevant. Each mind conceives God in its own way. There are as many variations of God figure as there are people in the world. And I think a common belief is that like religion is between you and God and no one else, right? That's like part of, most Abrahamic religions. You can't judge me, only God can judge me kind of thing. That quote is really that like your religion is to serve you and give you guidance and give you faith and let you be attached to this world in a manner that serves it and yourself. And I think the fluidity of that is beautiful. And that's it for this week, guys. Please rate the show. Please follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. On Instagram, it's actually Art of Life Podcast, not AOL Podcast. On YouTube, it's Art of Life Podcast. On Instagram and TikTok, it's AOL Podcast. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week.